So welcome, everybody. My name is Jothan Frakes. We're here to talk about Handshake in the traditional domain ecosystem. And what a fun topic, right? I think we heard Vinny just in the past panel talking a little bit about interoperability, and Jehan was talking a little bit about like how browsers ultimately, right now don't all work interchangeably, and there's certain aspects of the project that still have to reach out into the rest of the internet. So I'm privileged to be your moderator today. My name is Jothan Frakes, and I'm the co-founder of a conference called NamesCon and Merge. I'm the vice chair of the ICANN Contracted Party House Tech Ops. That's the registries and registrars. And I'm on the Registrar Stakeholder Group Executive Committee. I also own an ICANN accredited registrar called Private Label Internet Service Kiosk. I'm joined today by Tom Barrett, who is the CEO of ICANN accredited registrar EnCirca, Brantly Millegan, who is the chief operating officer of the ENS Domains project, and Mike Carson, who is the CEO and founder of Park.io and a really incredible project called Impervious that is doing quite a lot for a lot of the technology needs for the Handshake project. Thank you for joining me today, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Happy to be here.
So I'll kind of be monitoring the chat a little bit, but I welcome people to ask questions. We'll probably hold the questions to the very end of the session because we have a lot of ground to cover in about 30 minutes. I wanted to start off and just talk a little bit and segue a little bit from what Vinny was talking about with interoperability. There was discussions about Cloudflare and other systems that'll have a tremendous, I think, effect should they choose to adopt or integrate handshake names into their offerings or their systems. And, we're going to talk a little bit about what are the things that are affecting that, both good and bad. What are the things that they're looking for? And then there's another system, which is the ICANN accredited registrars, resellers, hosting companies out there, and how they may endorse or embrace this. So there's a resolution layer and there's a registration layer. And I think those are important pieces because they are, part of how we're going to get the domains out into people's hands and how people will be able to use them in general. So I'd like to start off first talking with Mike Carson a little bit about the platform Gateway.io and some of the work that's been done to help people who've acquired handshake names to make second level of names available to people. So Mike, can you talk a little bit about Gateway.io and how that's working, what kind of traction you're seeing, and then we'll talk a little bit more about another of your projects a little bit later in the section. But sure. Can you tell us a little bit about Gateway.io and what you're doing there?
Yeah, so Park.io set up a registry operator, a registry system that's EPP based, which is the standard protocol for managing domain names. Like most registries and registrars, like for .com and like .io and .org and all that stuff, the registrars talk to the registry through EPP, and so we set up. Basically, we with the help of James Stevens, the guy who ran the .io registry for 10 years, he set up this whole registry system for us. And we've been working with Namebase.io to integrate that with registrars, and 101 Domain is selling, and EnCirca is selling, and Gateway.io is selling second-level domains on Handshake TLDs using the traditional standard EPP protocol, the registry system for that. And so I mean, I don't know if you recently, there's been a lot. I mean, suddenly we're getting a ton of one of the TLDs in the system is really starting to ramp up and get a lot of second level registrations, which is .c. It just recently moved into the top 500 TLDs of all, including ICANN, and it's growing pretty fast. Like today, I was watching it, and there's just registration after registration the whole day, basically. So it's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. You probably have a little bit more insight into the statistics and things. Like, in the ICANN world, they've got a thing called the centralized zone file system where you can go and you can download the zone files for the various TLDs. And so there's a website called ntldStats.com where you can actually go and you can look on a daily basis, which of the 1,000 so odd ICANN root TLDs are, and you can look at, which registrars are selling more of them or less of them. And there's a lot of open data there that I think, we'll probably see people democratizing that data to some extent within the Handshake world. But that's cool that you have visibility into those statistics.
Yeah, that's where I got that it moved into the top 500. I was looking at that site, and I would love to put Handshake TLDs on there. And I think ETH should go, like .eth should go on there too. I mean, it's probably way up there. I mean, with hundreds of thousands of registrations. But, I just, this is a little maybe off tangent, but I just want to mention, like, ETH is a TLD, like ENS is like kind of a TLD, like ETH is a TLD and Handshake is the root zone. So like they're kind of, they're different. Like I heard Vinny talking about how, I think Handshake and ENS are the two competitors, but to me, they're not like competitors really. Like they can be used together. Like they're complementary in a way. Like that's how I see it. So.
Yeah, that certainly seems like it'd be the case. And all of the different projects that I've found in the blockchain space, I think are all in different ways complementary or overlap. It's not apples to apples comparison with each technology because they all have different, I think, benefits and features that make them stand out more so than the others. And Tom,
sorry, can I say something real quick on that?
Of course, yeah.
Not to get off track on it, but so first of all, hi everybody. I'm Director of Operations at Ethereum Name Service. Thank you for being here. I look red because I got sunburned today. It's not because I'm embarrassed to be here. I'm happy to be here. I just wanted to say, so Mike, you said that ENS is like the .eth name. So common misconception. So ENS is a naming protocol that has its own roots, can support any top-level domain. In fact, has many top-level domains beyond .eth functioning in the system, which are DNS top-level domains. We have some. We're expanding that. But ENS is not just .eth names. It's far beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, it's .badass. We launched .badass too, but you're not trying to be
No. So
you're not trying to be your own root zone is what I'm trying to say.
Right. So, but we do have a root zone.
But Handshake is trying to solve the root zone problem, and like ENS is like solving the TLD, like the registry, like software to run a top level domain, I guess.
Well, so we do have a root zone, and .badass is not in the ENS root zone. So we have multiple top level domains in the ENS root zone. We have .eth, .xyz, .cred, .lux, .ceo, .club, .art. We're actually going to be expanding that greatly. So .badass, as you mentioned, right, is in a fork of ENS, unconnected from ENS that you've launched, which is your right to do so. But ENS is much more than just .eth names. That's not true. So I just wanted to correct that. That's all.
We'll touch on that a little bit later. Let's throw that hand grenade into the elevator.
It's not a hand grenade. I'm just saying that's
I know.
That's a fact. People say ENS is .eth. It's much bigger than that. We have a root zone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's complementary to a naming system, right? And we'll touch a little bit on that because, then it becomes which naming system, right? And we can talk a little bit towards that. But I wanted to jump in because of interoperability and just kind of segueing on the registrar piece to talk a little bit with Tom Barrett. Now, Tom, I have the privilege of knowing you across the span of a couple decades now. I hate to do the math on how long I've known you because then I feel less than young. And the thing that I've always admired about EnCirca is, as an ICANN accredited registrar, you've always pioneered into more challenging integrations. You do so much more for different registries when you go and launch TLDs. In fact, a recent example is the .bot registry that was an ICANN root TLD that Amazon launched. And they had to use you as an external registrar rather than their own registrar to launch their own TLD because it was complex and it required additional steps to validate with the various bot validation systems. And I recall as early as .arrow and even .pro, TLD launches back in the 2000s, that your company was right at the front of the line, picking out the difficult projects and doing a lot more to make those available. And so I wanted to ask you about what attracted you with EnCirca to making the Handshake namespace available and being so far ahead. And then, maybe a second part of that might be to describe what you're seeing.
Thanks, Jothan. And I know Mike and Brantly, they're doing some great stuff. I love your article, .badass, Mike. That was fantastic. I think everyone should actually take a read on .badass. So to give you an idea of my perspective, I've been involved in domain namespace since they first launched. I was with a trademark research company back in the 90s and have been in the domain namespace ever since. EnCirca specializes in the top-level domains that ask something extra from their end users. It might be that they're typically restricted. So we are the top reseller, for example, for .bank, .bot, .pharmacy. We're the only reseller for .cpa, .realtor. And so I've seen 1,200 or plus new extensions launch since 2000. And the number one lesson that I think you can glean from those new TLD launches is that every TLD is a brand, right? And so you need to understand that it's not good enough to simply have a TLD that matches a dictionary word or some common string. That's not the same as being a brand. And so what we've seen with the launch of new ICANN TLDs is that folks who thought they won the lottery because they won the rights to run some dictionary word, in fact, don't have successful businesses because they never branded their TLD. And so your TLD is a brand. It needs a business plan. The Handshake TLDs are no different than the ICANN TLDs. Don't believe that you've won the lottery because you have some dictionary word or common string. You need to differentiate your string from all the rest. And so that's a lesson, a common frame I want to impart to everyone here. So EnCirca, again, focuses on the TLDs that are focused on branding themselves. We specialize in a certain well-known strings where we can have a differentiation from folks like GoDaddy. And we're interested in doing the same thing with Handshake as well. So I'll stop there if you have a question, Jothan, or I can keep talking.
No, I think that's a really important point, is that if you look at the abundance that came from the 2012 round, I think there was a lot of time involved in assimilating that as retail. So to maybe make a real simple analogy for most folks, and I think we've got a more technical audience, but for those who aren't familiar with all the Real Housewives of how the domain registration system works, there's registries, which is I'd liken to being a manufacturer, and then there's registrars, which I'd liken to being a store, and then registrants, which is the customer. And the customers can't go direct to the manufacturers in the world of ICANN. They go through these stores, and the stores are where they manage the resolution and registration aspects of their domain. So they may modify their whois, they may update their DNS records and work. And anyway, when the 2012 round came out, there was an absolute abundance of top-level domain options and choices. And you have companies, I see Donuts is in the audience, and there's other companies, CentralNet, Minds and Machines, Affiliates, Newstar. I could rattle off tons of these, but there was just an abundance of choice that came to the market. And now where TLD options at a registrar and selling them, it really changed. It transformed from being something that was, I'm here for my .com, and then I'll pick up this do it when I launch. And so as you're coming through and you're coming out with even more of those options for customers, you really do need to differentiate yourself. And think about shelving and retail space, and how how you want the registrar to position you, and how you're going to make it attractive for them to do that. What's your community? Who are you serving? What's the addressable market? I think, did I hear you correctly, Tom, that's what you're looking at?
Correct. So I'm interested in partnering with Handshake TLDs that have a true business plan. That they don't just have a common dictionary word or common string, but they have a business plan where they are differentiating themselves from the competition. And the competition includes other blockchain domains as well as ICANN domains. I should say I'm also chair of the blockchain subcommittee for the Trademark Association. And as you know, the Trademark Association represents 10,000 trademark lawyers. And so my task or mission with the blockchain subcommittee is to identify the opportunities for brand owners on the blockchain. They tend to be things related to anti-counterfeiting, supply chain traceability, etc. And so there are truly opportunities with blockchain domain names that solve a problem for brand owners. Those are the sort of TLDs I'd like to hear from. But just like you're not allowed to yell fire in a movie theater, don't have a value proposition that is simply, looking to break the law. I'm looking for example, as a business partner, folks that are trying to solve a problem for businesses utilizing blockchain domain names.
And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I think we hear a lot about censorship, but censorship from a trademark perspective, when I was recently in Hong Kong and I went through the Mong market, and I was able to buy an amazing Rolex replica watch, and but it was a counterfeit. It was only $60 US, and so is that counterfeit watch is Rolex seeking to preserve their brand integrity and counterfeiting? Are you censoring the counterfeit from having .Lorex, and selling that watch, or are you just exercising natural brand protection and intellectual property management? There's a difference, I think, and a distinction between counterfeiting and other things, even more bright line things like what's called CSAM or other things that should be taken down or have some governance, and censorship. I think that those are not necessarily simple topics, and we don't want to dive too far into them because they're not very attractive to talk about. But there is a difference between free speech and what you do with free speech if it's illegal. And having
I want to interject. There's a great book. Everyone should read it, called "Crossing the Chasm" by Jeffrey Moore. Mm-hmm. It's the Bible if you're launching a startup. And so, the big part about crossing the chasm is how do you go from your early adopters into a mass market opportunity. And I understand that blockchain is anti-censorship. I just don't believe that feature is compelling enough to cross the chasm. I don't think there's a big enough market out there for people who care about anti-censorship.
Truth.
So for folks who think that's their value proposition, I don't think they're going to cross the chasm. They need something more compelling than that.
Mm-hmm. So good topics. And I think that these are the things that I can tell you from within the ICANN community, people who can make very, very significant impacts on adoption, whether it's offering the names at storefronts like EnCirca or 101 Domains or Gateway.io. It's also discussions around the people who are the resolution providers, so the Cloudflares and the other very, very large inflection points, convincing them that this is a trustworthy project, that it has strong governance with a lowercase g, or accountability, and less Wild West is going to certainly increase the trust, and we'll see more people attracted to coming into the space. Brantly, speaking of people being attracted to coming into the space, we got a little opportunity to talk about the scintillating topic of how ENS domains works, and it's really different than how the Handshake project works. And in fact, there was an important comment in the chat where somebody was saying, "Are you here to collaborate with us? Or are you here to compete with us?" I think it boils down to unique strings being the most important piece, so that there's no wallet or contract or NFT confusion. Is that the crux of it?
Well, I mean, that's part of it. So, of course, Handshake is trying to replace the root zone of the domain name system, right? So that's all that it's doing. It's only trying to do the root zone for top-level domains. That's a very intentional, strategic decision. If you read the history of Handshake, ENS has a root zone, although it is not trying to replace the root zone of DNS, but ENS is a full stack DNS, what I call complement. So you can have in the DNS system top level domains, second level domains, third level domains, subdomains. You can store records in ENS. The whole system is self-contained within the Ethereum blockchain, or can be, although we're actually working to expand this to layer 2s as well for scaling, as everybody knows, is the thing right now. With Handshake, of course, it's just the root zone. So for example, if I own a Handshake top-level domain, I'm selling second-level domains on those. Those second-level domains are not like blockchain domains. They function like the rest of DNS. And this is so very different strategies for bringing blockchain technology, I would say, to internet naming. And then the second part I think that you're mentioning or referencing is that Handshake is creating a very, very large number of top-level domains, a few of which actually have name collisions with DNS. So this is a common misconception. People think that the name collisions are in the future. That already exists, and will likely have more in the future. ENS has taken a very different strategic view of this. We don't want to have name collisions with existing DNS now or in the future. And so we are integrating the existing DNS namespace, and also as it grows, into ENS. So on the issue of are we collaborating or not, ENS and Handshake, at least in part, will have incompatible namespaces. So that prevents an incompatible strategy. So that prevents collaboration on our part.
Yeah, I just want to point out one thing. We're incompatible because Handshake supports .eth and ICANN does not support ETH TLDs. So they we're
correct, but it doesn't conflict. So that's the key point. So there's a conflict. Obviously, I mean, Jothan, you were the one who pointed out with .music, and that's I think there was another one as well, and that may expand.
But Brant, one thing I just would like to point out. I mean, yeah, maybe I don't know if this is the right time, but I think this is an opportunity. Like your blockchain, ENS is blockchain domains. Handshake is a blockchain root zone. Like we got a partner, man. Like we can't be against each other. And ENS saying that they're the good citizens of the internet, and they're like, well, we're not going to participate with Handshake because they're, the bad guys. They're they're going to do collisions and stuff.
I didn't say you guys are bad guys. I'm just saying that they're incompatible strategies here.
How can you say that?
You're taking strategy, that's fine.
But how can you say that when you have .eth, the Ethiopia, that's reserved for Ethiopia, ISO for Ethiopia.
Correct.
How can you say that on one hand? Oh. How can you say that you're...
Because it's not under use, right. So you're right. We do have a little bit of a problem there, and you're correct. But not on the same level.
I don't think you have a problem, Brantly.
Okay, Tom, I think we have no problem.
Ethiopia is never going to claim .eth. You're safe.
So yeah, you have to understand the history here. So the 2-letter and 3-letter country codes were reserved for countries. So and the 2 letters were actually given to the countries. The 3-letter country codes being reserved means that people can't like register them in a GTLD round. So
Yep.
technically, in the future, could there be a possible problem with .eth? I mean, technically collisions now, and likely will in the future. In fact, that's the goal of Handshake. Now, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing immoral about it. There's nothing illegal about it. That's perfectly fine. ENS, we're taking a very different strategy. We think that our strategy obviously has the most chance of success of bringing blockchain technology to internet naming. Handshake is taking a different strategy, and that's fine. We will see how it plays out.
But yeah, what's the value of a decentralized TLD if it's in a centralized root zone? Do you feel like there's value in that? I mean, wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't it be better? Well, isn't there more value in a decentralized, a decentralized TLD in a decentralized root zone? I don't know. If you're looking for decentralization.
Yeah, so Jothan, can I respond to that?
Yeah, sure. And then we're getting close to the time. So I was going to say, this sounds like it would be a great, like a clubhouse session where we go hash it out.
Yeah,
I would love to.
Okay.
So just say Mike in the chat said he extended this by 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, great. Well, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Throw some red meat into the pen.
Right. So the other Mike, not Mike Carson, Mike.
Yes, of course.
Other,
So Mike, thank you to our gracious host for this. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike. So we do have that. So .eth is a completely, is a decentralized. So it's like if you want right now the full benefits of blockchain decentralization for names, we have that with .eth, right? And we'd like to eventually have that for the whole root zone. So I agree with the goals of Handshake. The root zone needs to make use of blockchain technology. Yep.
Oh, sorry. I keep.
No, I'm sorry.
But yeah, so one thing is that there are key holders for .eth, and second, I guess you want something similar for the you're saying you want a root zone that's decentralized, but I assume you want like ICANN to have some control over that too.
Well, so hold on.
Well, here's my take on it. If I can chime in.
Let's hear it.
Well, can I explain the technical thing though he mentioned there, which I think is a common misconception?
Well,
so the ENS,
okay, 10,000 feet. I mean, what Brantly is proposing to do is to allow every ICANN TLD to have access to Ethereum, and basically blockchain-enable.com, .net, .org, etc. And that's from 10,000 feet. I'll let Brantly go dive down from there.
Yeah, and by the way, it's not just the top-level domains; it's the full stack. Right. Remember, people, I often hear this from Handshake people. That's fine. I'm not against Handshake people, but Handshake people often talk as though they're decentralizing the whole stack. They're only decentralizing the root zone. And the Handshake vision, it doesn't have to be this, but the vision was that the rest of DNS works the same. So like if you own Brantly.badass or I guess let's say Brantly.com, their sign, let's say, is running .com on Handshake. But Brantly.com still works exactly the same in all their servers. They have control over everything like that. With ENS, it's for the whole stack. So in terms of decentralizing the root zone, to me, that is a bigger issue of governance and a social process that I think is going to take longer to evolve and convince people. In the meantime, though, we can bring blockchain technology to the DNS tech stack and get a lot of benefits right now. Whereas Handshake is doing more of we want to overthrow the top thing right now. Now, they might succeed, and if they succeed, congratulations. I would also point out, just as a last comment on this, even from a technical strategic standpoint, for me, if ENS could create unlimited top-level domains in our root, right? We could create 1 million new top-level domains. We could copy everything in Handshake. We could do more. And if I wanted to do what Handshake's doing, which is trying to do the root, I would do it on Ethereum. I wouldn't do it on my own blockchain. So even from like a collaboration standpoint, if I was convinced of the Handshake strategy, I would just do it in ENS on Ethereum. We don't need Handshake.
So you would rather do it on an all-purpose, general-purpose blockchain that has CryptoKitties and stuff like that. You'd rather run a root zone on that than
because of composability. And a root zone is actually a great thing to run on Ethereum because it doesn't require updates all the time.
But like a second level, why not do a second level? Like Handshake does the the root zone has one job. The root zone is decentralized, and then the second level we can do badass. We can do badass on ENS, like
right. See, I would say it's actually the opposite. So that's actually what we're moving to. So we're actually working right now to get second level domains and records and all these things onto layer 2s, because Ethereum layer 1 is a bad place to do that. Whereas the root zone is actually the best thing to have on Ethereum layer 1 because of all the composability that you have. Whereas with Handshake, you're siloed off on your own chain. You have your own separate coin. You can't even be in Uniswap, or you have to have a wrapped coin or something like this. Whereas with us, we're on Ethereum, we're composable. DAOs can own it. We fit into all NFT infrastructure. We use Ether, so there's no liquidity issues. I'm just saying, personally, if I believed in the Handshake mission, I would just do that on Ethereum in ENS. That's my opinion about it.
Yeah, give or take gas prices right now. I mean, so there's things about it that are perfect and not perfect. I think each of the projects, we don't have Unstoppable here today, but each of the various projects that are very much outspoken about what it is they're trying to do to benefit and evolve the namespace have strengths. And I think we have to look at them each for what they bring to the table and what are the advantages. But they don't all work the same, and they don't all interoperate. And there'll have to be some choices. I mean, Brantly, you could today, theoretically, make a partnership with them to do bit.badass, but it would require that you make some arbitrary and subjective choice to start being inclusive where you've got sort of a big line. I have the same challenge. I'm the maintainer of a public resource called the public suffix list. And we're constantly asked to add new TLDs into it that are not part of the ICANN root and everything. Because it'll affect whether or not Let's Encrypt will add certificates, or Cloudflare will treat names as subnames or treat them as namespace. And it goes further than that. It goes into, email operability and search engines. And we've just got a hard line because we don't want to get into the religious wars about which root prevails, Mac or PC or ICANN root or Handshake. We just want to, we're volunteers, so we just want to keep it really lightweight, and we don't want to be caught in those wars.
My point is, if I wanted to have .badass on ENS, I would just create .badass, and I wouldn't need the Handshake people.
Okay.
That's my point. I'm saying we're not doing that because we want to remain compatible, but we don't. I'm just saying, why do we need Handshake?
And I think I heard the other distinction that you made, Brantly, is that somebody can leap in not at the top level, but they can leap in at the third level if they wanted to, and set up a wallet address or set up something and associate an ENS name with you. So if I, for example, had a name through CentralNIC offer UK.com, so I might get a third level like Jothan.uk.com. But let's say VeriSign at the top level for com doesn't support this. I could leap in at that third level based off of the way you've configured this and not be blocked by what the choice at the top level domain is. Whereas in right now, at least as it's configured in Handshake, I would be. So I think we have to look at how that could be configured in order to allow people more of the flexibility to dive in at those different layers. And you lose that when you leapfrog and start to work with different namespaces.
So Jothan, the big challenge here, as you know, is the collision factor or the leakage factor. ICANN is fine, is content with Ethereum, ETH, and Handshake doing their thing as long as they don't create collisions, right? As long as there's a next round of TLDs with ICANN and folks start applying for the same extensions of the Handshake TLDs, you're going to have collisions, and there's only going to be one winner out of that. So that's really I know Brantly has its strategy to try to avoid those collisions. Handshake is going to, I think, face them head on, and so
they already have them.
That's the challenge.
Yeah, and also to be clear, because ENS is integrating the DNS namespace, any collision that Handshake has with DNS is also a collision with ENS. And again, I'm not trying. People are saying I'm being salty, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be. Just speaking what I think. ENS is in 181 services, including Opera and Brave and MetaMask. I mean, so like we're in 45 wallets. We're in a lot of dApps and things like this. So if Handshake has any collision with DNS, it also has a name collision with ENS. That's a problem even in the blockchain community. I'm just pointing that out.
Yeah. So I mean, what it is ENS will not integrate with Handshake, but we have put ENS we have put ETH into the Handshake root zone, and for the first time, you can actually resolve with DNS a .eth name using our plugin that we made, the Handover plugin for Handshake. So for the first time ever, all these hundreds of thousands of registrations, we created the first resolvable DNS websites. And we're in
browsers and stuff. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. But we're in other extensions. We're in the MetaMask extension. We're in Brave, Opera, Status, MetaMask Mobile.
But you know what? Like you say you just do it in ENS. You just do the root zone in ENS on Ethereum. But it's so easy to fork. Like we did it with .badass. Like it would be so easy to sell ETH. Like I could just sell .eth. I could sell the names. Like I could just create another root zone. Like it's so easy to do it. So it just seems like that is such a fragile way to do it compared to one that's backed by proof of work, and like the only job is a root zone. Like it's just the only 100% job is just one simple idea, which is a secure and decentralized root zone. Whereas Ethereum, it's like all purpose and anybody can fork it, and we can make 1 million root zones. We can make 100, we can I just don't see. To me, it seems like a better fit is a decentralized root zone where the only job is decentralized and secure root zone, and then bringing ENS onto the second layer, which we've done with Badass. Like I think that just makes and with .eth, like it just makes a lot more sense that way. And I love it. I love ENS for that. Yeah.
I just want to make it clear, just because you keep saying this. So Badass does not use ENS.
It's ENS software. It's the ENS. We forked ENS. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Anyway. So people can hear more about your .badass project tomorrow. There's a whole session dedicated to it, Mike, and I think it sounds interesting for people. Maybe they would like to do that. And obviously, this is complex. We had about gratefully 40 minutes to talk about this, but I think we could spend a whole afternoon, perhaps even a whole week, kind of working to untangle some of this stuff up. And I'd like to kind of get us back onto the schedule. So I really, Brantly, thank you for coming in and mixing it up. Really glad you're here. Thank you for joining us today. Tom, Barrett, we're really grateful for your participation today, and thank you for all the innovation you're doing to benefit the namespace. Mike Carson, props to you. Thank you for joining this panel, and appreciate that we all got a chance to talk through some of this and figuring out the ways that we're going to work with some of the traditional ecosystem. And I really thank the audience for attending today, and all of you, happy handshaking. Cheers, everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Everybody healthy.